Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Golfers, may I have your attention for a moment? When you take golf lessons, the reason that the golf pro tells you to keep your head down is so that you can't see him laughing. I love that one. That's me. Good morning, everybody's up at the ranch. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America. Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Zeb Bell. Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. Wonderful people, too. And, of course, don't forget some of our great advertisers like Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. And our friends at Western Waste Services. Always at your disposal. Get rid of your garbage. Call them. Get on the route service. 734-6969. Good morning, Gina.
Good morning, sunshine.
Well, I want to, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think accolades are enough sometimes to say thank you, but between her and Deanne, they're so helpful on our program. And Gina got there early. She got out of bed way early this morning to come down to the studio and help me tape a couple of things we needed to get taped, and thank you.
You are very, very welcome. And, of course, Tuesday, and I see some sunshine.
Don't hex it.
I'm not going to, trust me. Please, bring it on, we need it.
Maybe it was just me, but boy, yesterday for a time in the afternoon, this old fat body of mine got a little chilly.
Mine did too, honestly. I actually had to put on my jacket for the first time all summer.
Yeah. I had to go have some work done on my eyes, and they put the drops in so that you can't see 2 feet in front of you, and you run into walls and back into, cars with your crutches and everything. And I had a heck of a time, so I sat in the car and let Deanne do the driving, and it was chilly yesterday afternoon.
So did she have to turn the heat on for you?
Yeah.
That's okay, because it seems like we're moving into fall.
It is. Do we have a pledger?
We have Jerry on for the pledge and Mr. Michael Rogers on for the one.
Great, my buddy Jerry. Good morning, Jerry. The pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, that was good. We had a weather alert in the middle of that?
Yeah.
Is it over now?
I think it's over now.
Did it interrupt everything Jerry said?
Yes.
No, I could hear it, but
Deanne was listening on the radio, and she said she couldn't hear Jerry, so I tell you, Jerry, are you still there?
No, he already hung up.
Oh, those doggone weather alerts.
I know.
Anyway, Jerry, thank you. Call in tomorrow, do it again without a weather alert beeping in on us. And now I got to quickly get going here. We're running late. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. They want to remind you that you can schedule a free in-home design consultation and sign up for free do-it-yourself classes. I'm not on yet.
I can hear you.
Deanne can't hear anything on the radio. Are we not going on the air?
I can hear you.
The alert's over with.
Okay, the alert's over with. Am I on the air?
On air mode, so we're here.
All right, we'll start all over again. Man, I tell you, I wish they'd take those weather... Never mind. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Don't forget, schedule a free in-home design consultation and sign up for a free do-it-yourself class beginning in September. Yes, next month, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for their blue door. They've got all your carpet, your hardwood, your vinyls, everything at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. And now here, hopefully, is Michael Rogers' weather.
You sure you want me to do the weather? You don't like weather alerts? I don't know if I should do this or not.
Listen, I don't like being interrupted. That's what I'm upset about. You're not interrupting me. Give me the weather.
Really? Okay. Hi, everybody. Isolated showers, possible thunderstorm. You're going to roll out of this mess you've been in for the last 72 hours. Should be nice tomorrow, but right now tomorrow's not here yet. 78 for the high, 80 for the overnight low. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
The best weatherman in the universe, Michael Rogers, weather.com, brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, 678-6945. Now, I believe we're rolling the way we should be this morning, and we've got a lot of stories to cover. We want your calls, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And I want to remind you quickly about SafeLink Internet Services, the best, Idaho's #1 choice for wireless internet. Number to call, 677-8000. Please tell them Zeb Bell told you to call and check about their special free router, free 30-day risk trial, absolutely free installation. Wow! Call them, SafeLink Internet, 677-8000. You bet we rely on them. Also, I want to say thank you quickly to Daryl's Cleaners. I'm going to be over there. Last weekend, literally, I was like a big old pig in the mud because everything I wore got muddy. And we got a whole bag of clothes to go over to Daryl's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. And I know when they're finished, they're all going to come back looking brand spanking new. So you stop in. I'll be over there right around lunchtime at Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley, the best. Daryl's Cleaners. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. As you know, I'm not ever going to hedge words or mince words about certain subjects. I'm going to tell you how I feel. And if you watched some of that funeral yesterday for that black young man, Michael Brown, in Missouri, I thought some of it was nothing more than racial upheaval for blacks versus whites. That's the feeling I had. If you're offended by that, that's your problem, not mine. And I thought that Al Sharpton was absolutely pathetic, stirring the race pot for his gain, his own personal gain. That's how this man makes his money. And he was supposed to be giving a eulogy about Michael Brown, and this thing ended up being a black versus white verbiage. Now, if you disagree, I want to hear from you. This is going to be a wait-and-see attitude as to what happens in this case and what's going to happen to the policeman. And, you know, I'm just going to blatantly say, I think the policeman is going to be exonerated. I think the policeman is going to be proven innocent. I think the policeman is going to be shown that he was under attack by this behemoth, this great big boy that was 6'4", 300 pounds. And I honestly think we have not heard the last of the story. And unfortunately, there's going to be other ramifications because of this. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
I think the Muslim terrorists have found the perfect ally in Al Sharpton. And he's going to save them a lot of trouble because he's going to be going around the country trying to incite riots in every major city that we've got.
Tony,
I really have that feeling.
well, one of my fears is that whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Chicago, good Lord, I hope it's not Chicago. They've got so many problems. Whether it's New York, whether it's San Francisco, whether it's L.A., the inciting of black versus white on this yesterday's occasion with that funeral and Al Sharpton, if you heard or listened to any of it, watched any of it, Al Sharpton was nothing up there at the podium but a race baiter.
Oh, absolutely. I'm surprised they haven't lowered the flags to half-mast in this show that went on yesterday.
And that's what it was as a show.
Yep, that's all it was.
I totally agree with you. Thank you, Tony. You and Mary, God bless you. I got a whole line of calls. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Appreciate it. Caller, I'm going to ask your patience, please, because you know I got to pay some bills. I'll be right with you. Don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley with all of your electrical needs. And I also want to remind you right now that coming up on September 11th, Patriots Day, and hats off to farmers. Ramsey Heating and Electric really respects agriculture and farmers in this area, and they're going to have a special day on the 11th. Don't forget that. Lots of giveaways, company reps. We're going to be broadcasting live there. George Mass is going to have breakfast. Don't miss it. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they always provide warm winters and cool summers. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Hello, my friend.
He is one of the worst people in the United States. I just can't say enough ugly words that express that man, because he has so much hate in his heart for white people.
He's a race baiter. That's all he is. He's a race baiter and a race hater. And let me ask you something, Keith, and give me a short answer, because I got a whole bunch of people and commercials to get on. But if a white man stood up at a funeral and did and said and acted like he did, what do you think would happen?
I don't know. I was appalled that he turned that into that. It's a wonder Obama didn't attend the funeral too and make a campaign speech out of it. You know, it was just that far off base.
Yeah, I mean, it was nothing more than organizing, if you will, in limited terms, the black base to come around and circle and join hands against the whites. I mean, maybe I'm looking at it wrong for the excerpts of the speech that I watched, and maybe I'm being too prejudiced against this man because I don't like him. I never did. But I found it to be nothing more than race baiting and causing racial upheaval, like I said, for blacks versus whites.
Yeah, Derek Holder, for instance, you know, on his gun-running escapade, you know, when a white man was killed there was nothing said about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so unbalanced. Our whole deal is so unbalanced.
Keith, you've been in business for years and years in this area. And you have to open your doors, and you have to be cordial to anybody and everybody that wants to come in and do business to you. And I have never heard you say anything racial. I know myself, I work with any and all people in my other occupation, the rodeo business, and also my public speaking, and color doesn't mean anything to me. It's personality that I judge and how they treat me and or vice versa. I am so sick of a color divide in this country that's being stimulated by the likes of a pathetic person like Al Sharpton.
Yes, I remember one time a guy's car broke down, and he was black, and he needed the car, and for some reason I just trusted him. To go to Portland, where he lived, and to send me the money. And that's exactly what he did.
Yep.
I mean, we are all Americans. We were born in the United States, and we make, at least almost every day, I make a pledge to the United States.
There you go.
And if everybody else, when they get up in the morning, they just put their hand over their heart and just say, God bless America, Her day would go so much better.
Thank you, Keith. I always look forward to your calls. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Got to run. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Valley White Home and Ranch. Hey, you know what? You probably aren't aware of this. If you are, great. You're ahead of the game. But if you still need school clothes for your kids, Valley White has a great selection. They got winter clothing that's coming in soon. They got new jewelry showing up every day. And they've got all the steer feed. They've got the dog and kitty cat feed. And, yes, they do have a great selection of fishing supplies. So there you go. There you go. Better stop in and see them today. Great, folks. At Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. You stop in and get what you need today. Hey, by the way, there's another place, too, that you can go in and get what you need, and that's food. I mean, when I'm hungry, I want what I want, and I love Denny's Restaurant. Now, I got to tell you that I'm not just making this commercial up. I never write any commercials. As a matter of fact, I just make them up as I go along every day. But the truth is that Denny's Restaurant, wow, I mean, ever since I went in there for the first time, and the service, Thomas and everybody is so nice, Terry, and the food, I mean, the menu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is absolutely amazing. So get in there and check it out, and you'll see what I mean. Now, you hear papers rustling in the background, and I'm about ready to kill a fly that won't leave me alone. Pesky little devil. Anyway, stop over and see our friends at Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland and Burley, the very best of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we're going to be there this Thursday for lunch brunch. So you be there with us at 11:30 at Denny's Restaurant in Burley. Absolutely excellent. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Why doesn't Obama just do all of us a favor and shut his mouth? I mean, this man is, and has been, ever since he was a state senator from Illinois, apologetic about America and apologizing for us. I don't want any more apologies for us. I don't want him to stand up on a world camera and have the world opinion look at us and go, oh, bad Americans, ugly Americans. That's what he's creating. Now he comes out and he's apologized again in the terminology about possible torture. Now, there are some in the audience that are not going to agree with this. Caller, I want you to stand by. I'll be right with you. I want to finish my thought on this. There are people in this audience that don't think we should ever, quote-unquote, torture anybody for information. Well, I, for one, have said it on the air. I'm going to stand behind my statement that if I happen to know, or anybody happens to know, of bad guys that are going to bomb a school, bomb a sporting event, bomb a church, whatever the case might be, then if they can get a hold of one of those guys, they should go to any measure to get the information. And I mean that. There is no depth too low to get the information to save American lives. Now, I'll get back to that in a minute. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning, Jeb. Yeah, Denny's has got a good security system, too, ain't they?
Yeah, especially the back door that you keep sticking your backside into.
I was watching some of that fiasco yesterday, and it's disgraceful.
Yeah.
I wish somebody would tell Sharpton, hey, take a long hike off a short pier and don't come back. This is getting ridiculous.
Well, why does he get away with this? And I'll tell you the reason, in my opinion. He is a paid employee of MSNBC and NBC in general. And quite frankly, today, everybody's afraid of these race charges from the whites to the blacks, and they're letting him literally get away with murder.
I know it. And just like in Utah, the black cop shot a white guy unarmed, but not a thing said about it, nothing going on in the news, but boy, keep it quiet.
Well, Al, I think you will agree with me on this, that if the facts of this case in Missouri are given a chance to be proven and the case is not tainted by the handling of Eric Holder and our government and racism, I think it's going to come out that the policeman acted within the bounds of what he should have done, and I think we're going to see major problems all over this country.
I believe that too, and the fact is, he should be exonerated because he was in the right, and all them witnesses so-called for that Martin kid are nothing but a bunch of damn liars and crooks that still got a warrant out for that one guy. So what are we going to believe? Do you want to believe on the crook, or do you want to believe a white cop that protected himself?
Well, the thing is, it shouldn't go down to black, white, black. It should be, did the policeman protect and defend himself in accordance with the rules and regulations of his job? And color should not come into it.
I know it. I just can't believe that this has went this way just over the last 50 years. I just can't believe it, but it's happening.
I agree with you. Al, I got to run, buddy. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Caller, I'll be right there, I promise. Don't go away. I want to tell everybody about Berry Equipment and Rental. 3 locations, Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, South Lincoln and Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They've got an end-of-season inventory sale. Some great bargains at Berry Equipment right now. Specials on Coyote tractors and Hustler mowers, and they've got riding mowers starting at just $28.99. Those are good ones, too, I'll tell you. You're going to love it. Come on into Berry's for all your needs, and believe me, they have all your needs. Leasing or buying Berry Equipment and Rental, Twin Falls, Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. I'm pretty young yet, but growing up throughout my years, the only time I ever really seen any racism against anybody was one of the black people hating white people for doing their job or trying to actually protect black people. They're for protecting them from the government instead of letting them have gimmies, trying to help them get a job. Then they're racist because they're doing this, that, or the other. And as far as your torture thing goes, when people are dismembering women and children and old people, all the gloves are off. It's all fair now, man.
Well, let me tell you.
Here in the U.S., and by golly, if somebody's got to drink a little water to keep them from getting here, then so be it. I'm with you. I want the info.
Well, I'll tell you something. What gets me is about 6 months, 8 months ago, something like that, I did a segment on terror, and some of the bleeding heart liberals in this area, they came out and they absolutely said they were disgusted with me and my attitude. Let me tell you something. If my wife or one of my children or one of my grandchildren were in a situation where these terrorists were going to do them harm, and one of those terrorists was caught and captured, and I had access to that person, I would resort to any methods necessary to get that person to talk. I am not above saying that I would torture them to the nth degree to protect my family. And you know something? I don't think there's one of these bleeding heart liberals in the audience that wouldn't do the same.
Well, it's kind of funny. They said, well, don't torture him, don't torture him. When they catch one of our guys, they do more than just waterboarding. They do it for fun. They don't do it to get information. They do it for pleasure, which is beyond me, and it's rather disgusting and horrifying.
Yeah.
What they do for pleasure to people they capture. And I agree with you. If it's going to bring some information to us to how we can bring it into this and save American lives, why?
Yeah, I remember there was a circumstance that came up in the conversation that day, and they were really criticized. A couple of people called and criticized me that, as Americans, we don't do that. As Americans, we should never resort to being as low as they are. And I thought, you phony liar. You phony liar, because if you don't care for your wife and your family any more than that you would stand by and say, well, I'm above doing that. When your wife and children or grandchildren might be hurt, maimed, or killed, you're a phony liar.
I agree. I really agree. If somebody like you, got a hold of any of my loved ones, there would be hell to pay if I ever got a hold of someone that could tell me.
You bet. I got to run.
I wouldn't stop.
All right, Raleigh. Thank you so much. Appreciate your call. Thank you.
You too.
Right now, we're going to take a little break and have the Capital Press Ag Minute, and then you call in. I mean what I say about this, that I don't care who it is or what the circumstances. I just wonder if you'd stand by and let something happen to your family. Because we're above trying to get information by any means necessary. Baloney. Here's the Capital Press Ag Minute.
The Capital Press Ag Minute is brought to you by OnlyAg.com.
Bittner Vineyards this year became the first Idaho vineyard to be low-input, viticulture, and ecology certified. Live certification is an industry standard that confirms a winery or vineyard is using ecologically sound and science-based pest management practices. The industry-created nonprofit group uses third-party inspectors to certify Pacific Northwest vineyards and wineries meet international standards of sustainable viticulture and ecology practices. Live certification, which also verifies that workers are treated fairly and waterways are protected, is widespread in Oregon and growing quickly in Washington, but has just taken root in Idaho with Bittner certification.
To receive instant, exclusive, unlimited access to the West Agricultural News Source, register your account today at CapitalPress.com.
Oh, thank you very much, and don't forget Snyder Surplus. It's not just army and hunting supplies. No, they've got something for everybody. They've got movies, and they've got all the hardware, and they've got loads of furniture, and they've got banana-sized boxes put together with various kinds of food. Oh, I'm telling you, it's all there for you at Snyder Surplus. 112 South, 200 west of Rupert. Stop in and see their brand new store and the brand new merchandise and the same friendly service. Snyder Surplus, 112 South, 200 west of Rupert. You stop in and see them today. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And as far as Obama is concerned, on his apology for the United States, oh, we tortured some folks, we did wrong, oh. Well, let me tell you something. Obama apologized for some techniques that were used to gather information that at that time were legal. Look it up. At that time were legal. And former CIA head Jose Rodriguez said getting the information now because of all of Obama's apologies is almost impossible because the terrorists know our playbook and they know that Obama's going to be apologizing for everything that we do. And I think, did I hear you turn your microphone on, Gina? If you didn't, go ahead and turn it on. I want to hear your comment.
Okay.
Because, you know, sometimes people think I'm way to the far right and everything else. That's fine. They can think what they want. But I will put this in the perspective of a mother, a female.
Okay.
If you knew that there might be something happening at the school where your child attends, and there was a person that had the information as to when and what might happen, don't you people out in the audience tell me that you wouldn't go to any means necessary to get that person to talk.
Oh, without a doubt. I hold no bars. Hey, you know what? If somebody was going to go into, say, my son's school and do harm to them, I think from a mother's perspective, I mean, you're messing with Mama Bear, and so Mama Bear is going to do what's necessary to protect her cubs.
Absolutely.
That's just, you know, the nature of the beast.
And as well, you should. I don't care if it's taking off pulling out every toenail, fingernail, whatever. That person is going to do harm to my family, my children, my grandchildren. I'll guarantee you, I'm going to get the information. And don't sit there and accuse me of being sadistic and inhumane. I am protecting my family. I am protecting my community. And these people and their livelihood and their health at that juncture mean nothing to me.
Well, and for the people who are saying, pshaw, no, really, they have to put themselves in that situation and in those shoes and then think of, really, what would you do? I know exactly what I would do, and I would be grabbing a hammer. I would be grabbing anything and everything just to, you know, get what information I needed out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of the beast. So for all of the liberals out there that are saying, oh, well, that's just too harsh, really, no. Put yourself in those shoes.
Amen.
What would you do if it was your family?
Amen. That's the way I feel, but I took a lot of heat the last time, and I'm willing to take it again because I think they're hypocrites and they're liars, and I'll use those words because their family, if it was under the circumstances where they could get the information, they would.
Yes, they would.
All right, thank you. Hey, Magic Valley Stampede, PRCA Rodeo, 3-day event coming to the Twin Falls County Fair. Don't miss it. And the big Twin Falls County Fair is going to be August 27th through the September 1st. Carnival Lights and Western Nights. Yes, sirree, Magic Valley Stampede on 28, 29, and 30 of August. This is an ag-based, family-oriented fair. You'd better be there at the Filer Fairgrounds, and that is the Twin Falls County Fair with the Magic Valley Stampede. Don't miss it. Okay? Calls are welcome and appreciated. I guess we scared everybody off. Better give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Here's one I want you to weigh in on. All the stories, if you want to talk about them this morning. The American Academy of Pediatrics. And here again, I know that a lot of you are going to probably disagree with me. But the American Academy of Pediatrics has come out with a statement saying that we, parents and others, should let our kids sleep longer in the morning, sleep as long as they want. They need more sleep. So the American Academy of Pediatrics is suggesting that school times should probably not start until about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting here going, why? Why are we catering to the kids? Why are we, little Johnny and little Susie, look at, oh my goodness, they're resting so peacefully in their bed. No. Why should we back up the day to cater to them? Why should we back everything up and make it harder on parents to get babysitters and go to their jobs and everything? Why shouldn't we make kids have some responsibility and instead of maybe letting them sleep longer in the morning, make them go to bed earlier at night? I mean, the problem is not much of a problem, I don't think. So if it comes to sleep, and they need more sleep, bounce little silly Susie and Billy's butts up into bed at 8 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock, or whatever time. What are your thoughts on this? Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Parents, why let them stay up till midnight? Why let them stay up till 11:30, 12 o'clock? Oh, and then all of a sudden 6:30 rolls around, got to get up and get ready for the school bus. Oh, I can't get up, I'm too tired. Oh, you poor little dear. You just stay here and sleep. Baloney! Get them to bed earlier in the night if they want to, but get them up early in the morning. I think they've got to learn some responsibility. Enough said. Calls 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Go ahead, give me a call. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. All right? By the way, don't forget Sophie's Chatterbox at 530 E Street on the Square in Rupert. Oh, what a bakery over there. Have you had any of the cookie bars, homemade bread, delicious cinnamon rolls, wedding cakes? I mean, they make it all, and it's so good. They're open for breakfast, lunch, or supper Monday through Friday, 6 to 6, Saturdays and Sundays, 6 to 2. But the bakery is phenomenal. Call them, 436-0354. Sophie's Chatterbox on the Square in Rupert. All right, your turn. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear about a 12-year-old boy in Florida, and a very nice boy, and evidently his dad is deceased, and this boy came up with an idea as to how he could make some money during the summertime and help his mother pay the household bills and the mortgage and everything. And a very articulate young man. He's 12 years old, and I said he's in Florida. Well, he started a lemonade stand. It's a little bit unique. It's a specialty lemonade stand, and they serve really, really good cookies and various flavors of lemonade and everything. And I'm telling you, the kid is just rolling in the money. And people are coming from all over in this Florida town to support him, and he's quite an entrepreneur and quite a salesperson. One person in his neighborhood got all bent out of shape because of this young man having a lemonade stand, because it drew in a lot of people, either pedestrian traffic or auto traffic, and one person is probably going to get him shut down because of the complaints about the people. And this young man, when asked, he said, well, did you try to go over and visit with this man? Did you try to make amends with this man so he wouldn't be so critical of you? And the young man had gone to the door and had offered cookies, and he'd offered lemonade to the man. And the man slammed the door in the young man's face and wouldn't even talk to him. And now, because of this complaint, he may have to shut down his business, may not have a business if he can't figure out how to relocate. And by the way, he jumped through all the legal hoops and everything, but the complaints, I guess, are overriding all the legal hoops. And one person is going to stymie and stop, possibly, this young man from being an entrepreneur and also from helping his mother pay the mortgage and pay the bills. I get so frustrated. We have so many stories about punks and thugs and the younger generation, i.e. Michael Brown in Missouri. And then when you hear something good about a young man that cares and loves for his mom and wants to help any way he can, and by the way, he's generating a lot of cash, and one person, one old Grinch, shuts him down. It just, do not have the temperament for that. All right, give me a call. Help me, please. I got to calm down. Don't forget, the legend lives on at Zollinger Quarter Horse Ranch 26th Annual Production Sale. This is going to be a ripping good horse sale on Saturday, September 13th. It's coming up in a matter of days, actually. And it's going to be at 1994 South 100 east of Oakley, right up at the ranch. And they're going to be offering several weanlings and 2- and 3-year-olds. And they've got the best of conformation, disposition, and performance. I'm telling you, you're going to get the best of horses. They always have great horses. And for more information, call Jerry at 670-3833 or go to the website ZollingerQuarterHorseRanch.com. This is going to be a sale you don't want to miss. September 13th, 10 a.m. at Zollinger Quarter Horse Ranch. Production sale. Don't miss it. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hello again, Zeb. A.J. Ballenkoff. Have you ever heard of this man?
A.J. Ballenkoff is not a household word, nor do I really think he ever will be. He's running against, of course, Butch Otter for the gubernatorial position. And I'll be quite frank with you, I think he's already shot himself in the foot a couple of times with some of his brash statements that didn't make a lot of sense. That's about all I want to say or can say about the man. I don't think he's really going to amount to much.
Well, all this money that Obama has raised through his campaigning, or his breakfasts or dinners or whatever, they'll throw it at this man to try to get a Democratic governor in Idaho.
Oh, I know that, Keith, but the proof is in the pudding. Let me ask you something. Give me a short answer on this. About 3 weeks ago, there was a front-page story in the Times News, and pardon me, I don't have it in front of me right now, so I'm kind of ad-libbing about what it was. And there was a front-page story in the Times News that was critical of Butch Otter because he said, no, Idaho does not want any of these illegal alien children from foreign countries coming to Idaho and putting a burden financially on the citizens of the state of Idaho. And I think he did a good job by saying that because that's the way I feel also. Well, A.J. came right out on behalf of the Democrats and really came out with contempt against Butch Otter for what he had said in that letter. And I thought it was a very open and honest letter that Butch had written to the president and others in this administration. And they criticized him as politicizing the event. Well, yes, it was politics because, yes, Obama and his henchmen have tried to force those kids on many locations.
Well, I don't know what to think, but if he was asked to come on your show, would you by us asking some questions?
Oh, no, there's no question. There's no question about it that if he wants to call me and come on this program, I will be very gracious as a host, and I will let him on the program, and I will ask him questions that are very poignant about his platform and his beliefs. There's no question about that. But I doubt that he will, because I really find some holes in his screen door, and I don't think his people are going to call me and beg for airtime.
It's hard to say something wonderful about somebody who you know wants to destroy you.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll be very fair to all people that want to run. I've invited other...
Fair with some of the candidates that you've had on.
Well, thank you. And I've offered airtime to many Democrats that have sneered and scoffed. One of them, and I'll mention it by name, because quite frankly, it's the truth. And if it's the truth, it's not slanderous or anything else. I offered Debbie Silver time, and she absolutely scoffed at me and hung up the phone. With that kind of an attitude, what would you do?
Well, you just cross them off your Christmas list.
Oh, good point. Keith, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
That's the one word I've been able to say instead of saying, I don't like this person anymore. I'll just say, well, let's just say they're not on my Christmas list anymore.
There you go. Good way to put it. Thank you, sir.
They're on my Christmas list.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. God bless. Hey, it's time for the weather, and the weather is brought to you by our friends at Mad River Laser, 502 East Street in Rupert. Oh, my goodness, she's got everything. The gift shop is now open. You got to go in and see all their home decor and personalized gifts. And, of course, they've got custom hoodies are on sale for just $24. And if you're looking for blank T-shirts, they've got them in stock starting at just $5. I'm not kidding you. And I just love this store. I love this store and what Nicole Pratt can do. These are really nice people right on the square next to the Idaho Youth Ranch in Rupert. Stop in and see them today, okay? Mad River Laser. And right now, here is Michael Rogers' weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers at the Ranch. Isolated showers and thunderstorms today, 78 for the high. This will only taper off tonight, and should have a nice day tomorrow. And temperatures ought to be warmer tomorrow, 80 for the high tomorrow. But right now, tomorrow's not here. So we deal with today. Enjoy the weather. It is the only weather you got.
There you go. MichaelRogersWeather.com. Brought to you by Mad River Laser. She can make up anything. I'm telling you, she's fantastic. And they got buck knives over there, too. Check them out. And you can get free engraving on any buck knife ordered in the store. Nicole Pratt and Mad River Laser. 502 East Street in Rupert. You stop in and see them today. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4588. Are you kidding me? This can't be true, can it? I was given a story late yesterday afternoon about ICE, Immigrations and Customs agents. ICE is releasing. Now listen carefully to this and check it out if you will, but here's the information that was sent to me. ICE is releasing illegal aliens that are murderers. They have been allegedly accused, and some have even been through the court system. They are releasing murderers back into our society, and here's the kicker. When some reporters have asked, wait a minute, why are you doing this? And where are they going? ICE won't say anything because they said this. If we tell you where they are, we'd be infringing on their privacy rights. Now, wait a minute. Back up the bus for a minute. Let it idle. Open the door. Privacy rights? These are illegal aliens, and they are murderers. And we're releasing them back into us, our society. And we, the citizens, don't know where they are because ICE says that if they say anything, they'll be invading their privacy. What privacy rights? Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Bell. I was watching Fox News this morning. They're releasing 169 of them.
Yeah, I know. But why? And how come they've got privacy rights?
I don't know. They was talking with commentators this morning. They believe that Obama's coming up with an executive order to ease the pressure off the deportation.
George, if you're here illegally, that means that you've broken the law. If you're not a citizen of this country, you're an alien, thus the term illegal alien. If you've committed a crime and you've been arrested for murder, and all of a sudden you're turned back into our society, and legal citizens, you and me, we don't have the right to know where the bad guys are because they've got privacy rights? Are you nuts?
Yeah, I think it's getting to where we just have less rights and everybody else gets more.
I mean,
it's all political BS.
I heard this, and I just absolutely did a double flip and a half gainer and landed on my feet, well, my crutches, and I couldn't believe that we're accepting this kind of garbage.
Yeah, and the sad thing about the Congress, nobody is stepping up to call them out on it either.
That's the point right there, George. You're 100% spot on. Where are our congressmen? Where are our senators? Where are the people that work for us? I am so sick and tired of lip service. They'll call us on the Watts line and they'll say, oh boy, we're sure doing this, and we're sure involved in this bill, and we're sure trying to advocate this, and then they go back to their offices and really they're not doing a dadgum thing.
Nope, it starts from the president clear down to the little man on the totem pole in Congress. They just blame game. They blame it on the Republicans blame it on Democrats, and that way they both get out of it.
I agree, but I don't know about you, but I don't want the bad guys, these illegals that are murderers and rapists and child molesters. First of all, they should be kept in a cage. Secondarily, they shouldn't be released back into society. But thirdly, and most importantly, they don't have any rights over you and me.
No, the sad thing about the term loose is going to affect one of us or one of our loved ones, and then who's to blame? You can't sue the government for it.
This is, we're in a completely chaotic state in this country because of clowns trying to run a circus.
Yeah, if we have another 2 years is going to be a killer with Obama, but if it had been longer than that, we might as well just pack up and move somewhere else.
Oh, my goodness. George, thank you for your call. God bless. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, I just shake my head. I can't make this stuff up. I mean, I get up at 3:45 in the morning, and I start, my lovely bride, we start getting hold of New York and Washington, D.C. on the telephone, and we get these stories, and you just got to scratch your head until there's hardly any hair left in that one position because of the idiocy that's going on. And that's idiocy. What rights do these people have in this country? Duh. Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. I really appreciate them. They've got the best tire value promise in the industry, and with all their free services, you won't find a better tire value. No! Absolutely the best. Free lifetime tire and mileage care, free peace of mind tire protection, and the best in tires, the best in tread, the best in everything you need for your car, SUV, pickup, horse trailer, boat trailer, whatever. And also the best in brake service. I keep saying the best because it's the truth. The best in front end alignments and shocks and struts and batteries. Absolutely. And easy credit plans available. You stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. There again, here we go. The best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All right, give me a call quickly. I've got time. Don't leave me hanging here. I want to hear what you have to say. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'll probably upset some of the school teachers and principals and superintendents. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Stand by. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning again.
Holy smokes, all you got to do is just talk on the phone?
Well, if you're going to keep sending me that paycheck, that's what I got to do.
All right, what can I do for you this time?
Okay. an illegal alien breaks into your home and you shoot him, you didn't kill him, but you shot him, he will have the same rights that an American citizen has, right?
If he's in your home and doing possible bodily harm to you, your family, etc., no. In my home is my domicile, and nobody comes into my home unless invited. And the law, as warped as it's getting, I still think will protect the homeowner.
Yeah, but they give him just as much right. They assign him a public defender,
Yeah.
and he's treated just like an American citizen.
Which is completely asinine, Keith, and I'll throw the same thing to you that we were talking about. They have no rights if they're illegal aliens in this country illegally and murderers and back in society, and we can't figure out who they are because they're saying they've got privacy rights. Are you kidding me? Somebody fell off the bus on their head.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, we can't just deport them. For one thing, they'll come back right away, and you won't be able to find them. And the other thing is, will they prosecute them in Mexico?
Well, and in all your years that God has given you and blessed you on this great earth to enjoy a life, had you ever thought that we would be seeing this complete lunacy in our society?
Not at all. Not at all. I got interested in politics when I was quite young, about 24 or something like that, and I followed it pretty close, and you know, it seems like the good Lord has pointed me in the right direction each time.
There you go.
But we didn't win.
Yeah, I just...
told me that's what I should do, and so... that's what America's all about.
Amen. And we've got to get back to a set of moral values and principles, i.e. the Ten Commandments. Keith, I got to run to the news. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
We are going to take about a 6-minute break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk to a very good friend of mine, and I've got a lot of respect for this young man, Brian Hudig. He's a farmer that absolutely has seen what 4.5 to 5 inches of rain in a very short period of time can do as far as being destructive and wrecking a financial plan for the year. We're going to talk to him a little bit about that. And then at 9:30, we're going to talk to Dan Simmons with the the Energy Research Center. So don't go away. We've got a lot more in 6 minutes. Oh boy, come on back. Hour number 2, Zeb at the Ranch on a Tuesday. August 26th already. This is unbelievable to believe. Where did the year go? Oh my goodness sake. Seems like I spent all year just going to doctor's offices and hospitals and everything, and it's gone. Anyway, we're sponsored by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Thank you, all 7 locations. And, of course, some of our great advertisers like Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand. Always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Oh, thank you very much. And don't forget, we've still got a lot of summer left, especially we're creeping up on Labor Day, and maybe you're going to have a picnic. Maybe you're going to have an outing with the company. Maybe you're going to have a reunion. Somebody better order the porta potties. All you have to do is call 734-6969. That's right, 734-6969. And don't forget, too, maybe you're going to have a bunch of people over this weekend. Oh, shoot, you forgot to clean out the basement, the garage, and everything. Need a dumpster? Call. Get one today. They got them in various sizes. Load them up. I bet you get rid of all the junk. Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Always at your disposal. Absolutely. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, don't forget Dave Zanino. is putting on the Jerome County Fair Team Roping Series, and sign up at 6:30, rope at 7, Jerome County Fairgrounds. Don't forget that. And also, don't forget Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. Joel Heward, the manager. And I keep saying this, but it is also true that they always uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity, working with you and your family after there's the passing of a loved one, with attention the way you want to be taken care of. And every life is worth remembering, and they absolutely work for you. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. We're going to get on the phone line right now and talk to a young man that I've got a lot of respect for. He's a young farmer in this area that has absolutely worked hard and diligently to be the best he can be, and that's Brian Hudig. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Morning, Zeb.
Good to have you on the program, Brian, and I talked to you, I want the audience to know, I talked to you before the show, and quite frankly, the main gist of what I wanted to have you talk about this morning is the fact that, of course, farming is like playing Russian roulette with a lot more of the chambers loaded than one, and boy, we got hit really hard over the last couple of weeks with excess moisture that we normally don't get this time of the year. What did it do to the barley, wheat, and hay crops?
Well, I guess starting out with the barley crop, this rain started, August 6th. Combines probably were shut down on the 5th just due to the moisture in the air. So, within two days, the barley crop was pretty much ruined, which is pretty unheard of. Usually we get a good August, we're able to get it thrashed, and it seems like this year it just caught everybody kind of behind the eight ball. We started thrashing barley fairly quick. A lot of combines are rolling into July, and that's pretty uncommon around here. And so it's really when it comes to the barley wheat crop, there's a lot of acres that were affected. Right now we're dealing with a lot of test weight issues, not only just rejection because of the sprouting in the head, but just test weight issues. And so we're just in the middle of it. A lot of barley still going, needs to get thrashed, and it's just the next step of hopefully we continue to get days like this so we can get this crop out and move on to the next one.
All right, now explain to my audience, Brian, if you would, what does it mean when you say the barley started to sprout? And let's back up just one further step. A lot of the grain, the barley that was grown in this area is for malting contracts to people like Coors, Budweiser, etc. So what does it mean, and what does it hurt for the barley to start sprouting? Explain that, if you would.
Well, when it comes to malting barley, the whole process for these malting companies for the barley to sprout, and so once it's already sprouted in the head, it's to the point where they can't use it anymore. Based on a lot of contracts in the valley, I think they allow 1%, and we're dealing with barley that's after the first storm probably in the 40s, 50s, and I would guess now 100%. You're dealing with a lot of fields just because of lodged and lodged fields. You're dealing with 100% sprouting, and so when it comes to the malting side, it just doesn't do them any good.
Okay.
They just can't use it anymore.
Now, Brian, their contracts, and I don't want you to mention any prices if you don't want to because private information, etc., but their contracts for malting barley are substantially higher than what the contracts are for feed barley, so there was a lot of loss to farmers in this area, wasn't there?
Yeah, substantial. At least, half. If you're selling it on the feed market, you're getting at least half of what we would have gotten if we would have sold it to the malting companies. I think these malting companies were anywhere between $12 and $13, and I've heard feed getting down into the $5-6 range. So you're dealing with some huge losses there. And then when it comes to the yield side of things, when you deal with test weights, if you're beginning of the storm, you're dealing with 50, 51 pound barley. Now we're dealing with 44. and so that affects your yield substantially, 10, 15%.
Now, Brian, over in your area on the north side of the river where you do most of your farming, how much on a percentage basis do you still have to do as far as thrashing is concerned? I mean, this storm stopped everybody from getting in the fields. Are you able to get back in and try to get this barley harvested, even for a feed value source to feedlots?
Well, to begin with, the first storm caught me. I had 800 still to go, 800 acres still to go, and I started with 1,200. So it caught me with 60, 2/3 of my crop still out in the field, and through the storms we've been able to get a lot of it done. We still have a couple hundred acres left. So hopefully this is the end of it. Like I said, the weather like today will definitely help us get back in the fields and get back so we can move on to something new.
All right. Now, Brian, talk a little bit about the hay issue. I know from my own personal experience that I laid my hay in the day before that the storm started, and I did not have time to tarp the hay, and I was absolutely appalled that it went down as much as 4 tiers and just basically destroyed hay quality for horses, and now it's all a very low-quality feeder hay. Give us your impression of how that affected your hay crop and what you see over on the north side.
Well, when it comes to hay, there's tough decisions to make. I mean, the last 3 weeks this has been going on for a long time. So, do you put the hay down? Do you let it stand? If you want to get a good fourth crop, and quality is going to be a premium, obviously, with a lot of this hay out there. There were some tough decisions to make, and there's a lot of hay that was down in between the storms, and so now you're dealing with hay that's been on the ground for 10 days, 2 weeks, and then there's a lot of hay that's still standing that will probably get cut in the next couple days, and hopefully we have heat units to get a decent fourth. So when it comes to making those decisions, I don't think there was any right or wrong decision, because I don't think there was any decisions that were right in the scheme of things, and so we're dealing with some huge losses in the hay industry right now too, just because of the quality issues and the yield drag with the cooler weather we've dealt with.
What do you look at as far as, and I know this is projection and speculation, but looking at the winter and looking all the way till next spring and all the way basically till the first cutting next June, wow, is there going to be a severe shortage of hay in this area?
I don't think there'll be a shortage of hay. There'll be a shortage of quality hay. I don't know what this rained on low quality hay is worth. I haven't heard any prices that have been substantiated, but for the most part, the hay is there. It's just dairies are looking for high quality green hay. These presses are looking for green hay, and there's just none to be had. And when it comes to quality and the type of hay that the markets in this area need, there would be a shortage.
Brian, you've been farming for a long, long time over on that north side of the river. Do you ever recall in your farming career having this kind of moisture at this time of year?
Well, I've heard rumors back in the late 60s that it was something similar to this. My father, he's never seen anything like this. It's something that probably no farmer's seen. So it's one of those things where people just don't know how to react to it. We're still at the beginning of harvest, so there's a lot of decisions and a lot of crops still to get out. And so, in my personal view, that's the hardest thing is to continue to stay engaged and stay motivated to understand that we still have a lot of decisions that have to be made to finish out this year, and that can still cost you a lot of money.
And Brian, let's call a spade here. Land prices were extremely high this year, and there was a lot of land going for a lot of thousands of dollars per acre, and farmers were really banking on a good cash crop, whether it be from the barley, the wheat, or whatever, and the hay. Boy, this is going to be devastating to a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was looking to be a very profitable year with barley, and the hay prices the way they were, and the heat units we had this summer were above normal, so the yields were in the hay and corn and potatoes were ahead of pretty much everything in compared to the past, and so things were shaping out to be a good year, and that's like you were talking about before. This is gambling, and it doesn't take much to affect the bottom line, and so yeah, it's a pretty devastating situation, and probably every farmer in the valley has been affected some way.
Brian, when you look at these contracts, like with the brewing companies, and they come in and offer X amount of dollars per hundred for the barley, what about next year? Are they going to be a little hesitant about coming back and offering the same contracts instead of maybe going to another location? What are your concerns about that?
Well, I sure hope not. In the past, this is kind of a fluke storm, obviously, and they, in the past, this is where they come to get their good quality barley, and it's the crop that they normally can count on. And so, if you go back on history, this is where they come, and hopefully this thing doesn't change. Hopefully we don't get into these weather patterns that were affected down the road. But I think they're going to need the barley, and so I'm hoping they're back in the area looking for more acres, because these malting companies are a huge part of this community. Coors and Bud are wonderful to work with as far as partners in selling your crop, and it's been another avenue as far as a rotation where you can actually make money. In the past, a lot of these, you grew grain just as a rotational crop, and like this year, this would have been probably our cash crop in the scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. Now we have a caller with a question. Stand by on the line, Brian, and if you can't hear it, I'll give a paraphrase of the question. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air, please.
Hey, Zeb, I was just wondering where most of this barley and everything got ruined. Couldn't they just go through and, since it is ruined, thrash it, let it all go to seed, basically, since it's already sprouted and everything, and then come back through and green chop it to try and get some dollars back out of that?
That's a good question. Brian, how would you respond to that?
Well, I think at the price it is right now, it's probably more advantageous just to thrash it and sell it, on the feed market. Now, with these recent storms, I'm not sure if how that's going to affect the quality, the weight, the weight of the barley. So that might be an option. But before, last week up to last week, it was still more profitable just to sell it on the feed market.
All right. Brian, one last question for you. And again, I'm not a farmer. I was raised with horses and cattle, so I don't know that much about farming like you do by a long shot. But will this excess moisture that we've had, what are the possible effects on the spud crop and the sugar beets?
Well, it's still tough to tell. When I dig in my potatoes, it seems like they just haven't grown in the last 3 weeks. Normally, in August, we're either drying potatoes up to keep the diseases and mold out, and here with this weather, it's the exact opposite. And so, when it comes to the quality and yield, we'll see probably in the next month how that's affected. There's a lot of late blight issues up in eastern Idaho that are a major concern, and so when this first storm hit, we were you would if you looked up in the air, there was a lot of planes going because of that concern of the diseases and the mold that would get in the potatoes. As far as sugar beets, I'm not really sure either. It'll be interesting to see how the yields come about and how the sugar content is affected. But the beet crop around looks really good. I would say if there was one crop that it didn't affect, it would be the sugar beet crop. Because with these thunderstorms, you're getting some added nitrogen, and so that would be one crop that it really probably hasn't affected.
What about the beans? Last question.
On the commercial side of things, I grow garden beans for Harris Moran, and they're getting close to being ready to cut. A lot of commercial beans getting ready to cut. So these storms need
to get out of here first of all, before we start putting beans on the ground and so we can thrash them. But it goes back to the diseases and the mold that can get into these beans. There's probably some major issues, especially in the commercial side of things, meaning pinks and reds, pintos. They're a lot more heavier crop when it comes to the residue, and so that the ground shaded, and they lay over a lot more in the ground, and so they have a lot more tendency to mold, and so that could affect your yield substantially. So first, looking at the forecast, it looks like this thing's maybe finally going to clear out of here, and so hopefully we can get back to farming here.
Brian, I would imagine, and I'm not trying to be facetious at all, but I would imagine that farmers over the last 3 weeks have had to take a lot of sleeping pills to try to get some sleep at night because of all the worries, right?
Well, I would think so. Like we were talking earlier, it's something everybody's getting affected somehow, and so when you're dealt with certain situations like that you've never been involved in, it's there's a lot of sleepless nights involved, but that's I guess that's the challenge of farming.
But a lot of people don't realize that everything that happens on your farm and every farmer's farm is going to have a trickle-down effect that goes all the way through every community, and that's why it's very serious, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I would say that probably for the general public, they just don't realize how devastating this loss in these communities are. It's anywhere, stretching from Gooding all the way up into eastern Idaho. That it's affected a lot of crops, and a lot of money has been lost in the last 3 weeks.
Well, Brian, I know your family, I've known you, and I have nothing but respect for what you do and what you're trying to accomplish, but God's blessings, and I hope everything gets better for you before too long. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on my program this morning.
Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Brian Hudig over on the north side, and talking about the losses, extreme losses from the high moisture content that we've had in our weather patterns here lately. I mean, my goodness, it just seems like every day it clouds up and kaboom, we're getting more rain. And the loss of the barley crop for the malting barley, and it's starting to sprout, and the loss of the hay. I mean, oh my goodness, it's been tragic. So our heart goes out to those folks, and certainly hope brighter days, sunnier days are ahead. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. Hey, don't forget Duck Uglies, 163 West Highway 30 in Burley, next to Berry Equipment and Rental. Oh my, they're going to have some great entertainment down there this weekend. On Friday night, they're going to be having Barton and Bowler. Everybody likes them. And then on Saturday night, they're going to have the Nitty Gritty Dirk Band playing at Duck Uglies. Great food, great service, and great entertainment at Duck Uglies, 163 West Highway 30 in Burley. You stop in and say hello. Oh, and also, I want to remind everybody about Let's Ride. Yes, sirree, Bobby. Let's Ride. Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Oh, the 2015 ATV models are coming in now. All the dirt bikes, the Can-Ams, and the side-by-sides. And they've got rebates on some of the 14 models. And they got generators on sale. Oh, and they've got the best of service department. Brad and the rest of the folks out there in the service department really know how to fix things up. And don't forget, they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. Let's Ride, where the fun is sold. Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Gina. By the way, I was going to ask you, how did Kennedy do his first day of school?
He did great. He had a great day, and at first when he was I don't want to go to school, but after I went and picked him up, he had a wonderful day, and today he was up and ready, and he's like, I'm ready to go to school.
Did he have a brand new teacher this year?
Yes, Mrs. Packham.
Oh my goodness, so a brand new teacher, and probably quite a few new classmates.
Actually, I don't think that he has any new classmates.
Okay.
But I think that there's only like 15 kids in his class.
You remember when you were in school, and I can even remember as old as I am that first day of school, and the anxiety level, you're sitting possibly at a new location in a different desk, and you've got different people sitting around you, and it's so much fun, and then all of a sudden, the new wears off.
Yes, and then the schoolwork actually begins.
Yeah.
And they really haven't started any schoolwork yet. He had to bring home a book, so we read the book so he could take a test on it today. But other than that, no real homework as of yet. I don't think that's going to happen until after Labor Day.
Okay, Mom, a little quiz, pop quiz. What was the book about?
The book was, I would so fail the test. It was about can and can't, and it was about a monster that was inside of a box, and everybody was trying to figure out how to open the box. And a little fly went inside the lock and unlocked the box, and out came an alligator.
You do remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it was very earth-shattering, but
Yes, it was.
But I'm very proud of you. I mean, sometimes I have a hard time remembering what I did 5 minutes ago, and you did very well.
Usually, if I read something, I forget it 5 minutes later, and so I'm actually shocked that I actually remember.
And I love to read. I got to say this real quick and then do a commercial, but I try to read a couple of books a week. I really do. Deanne, she's into like 3 or 4 a week.
I don't like to read.
I love to read good novels, and I've got some of my favorite authors that I really follow what they do and everything. But, I think I'm very discerning about if it's a lousy book, it goes right in the trash can after about page 30. You can tell whether a book's going to be any good by about 30 pages, and then it's time to pitch and throw.
See, my thing, I love audiobooks. I like to be read to.
Oh.
Yeah, so I really enjoy the audiobooks, Audible, and things like that.
And I have been asked to do some audiobooks.
You should.
Yeah.
You should, honestly, because I would love to actually get into that and actually be the voice for some of these audiobooks, but I really love to listen to them.
And I don't mean to say this to be at all derogatory. It's complimentary. You would be excellent at children's books.
I think so.
Because of the inflection in your voice.
Because I had that little bit of a higher voice and everything. So
Yeah.
I would love to do that.
All right, there you go. We'll team up and get something started.
There you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Well, if you didn't, then you better get a hold of Christine Pickup at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Christine Pickup is a doctor of audiology, and she's at 1218 9th Street, Unit 2, right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room. That's where her office is, and the number, 312-0957. Did you hear that? Well, if you didn't, you better get a hold of her today and check out your hearing. Yes, sirree, hearing loss is not a part of aging, so don't ignore the lack of hearing. Call her today at 312-0957, Mount Harrison Audiology with Christine Pickup. Did you hear that? There you go. Let's see, what else have I got to do here real quick before I get my guest on the air. I think we will go for the Institute of Energy Research right now, and we're going to be talking to Dan Simmons. He's chomping on the bit. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Doing well, Zeb. How are you?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got to tell you that I am fed up to the hilt with the Obama administration and their lack of getting anything accomplished for us. I'm fed up with all the people like Tom Steyer, billionaire that wants to be a climate activist. I'm fed up with everything they're doing, and now Tom Steyer is back in the news again. What did he do this time with all of his money?
Well, this time he's now decided that, besides owning, and I couldn't believe this when I looked this up, 3 houses within 15 miles of each other in San Francisco.
Really?
Besides that, whatever. Anyone that wants to live, I'm not going to complain about how people want to live their lives and how they want to spend their money. It's not my place. However, so if you want to have 3 houses within 15 miles of each other, that's fine. But when you then spend your money to try to influence public policy to increase the cost of energy, that really ticks me off. And what he's now gotten into, we've known that Tom Steyer for a long time has been going after the Keystone XL pipeline because
it will bring low-cost energy from our good friends in Canada as opposed to us getting the energy from overseas.
Right.
He's now getting into a higher and higher ethanol mandates. There's nothing wrong with, if you want to use ethanol, good for you. But, we do not need to mandate increasing ethanol. And he is now spending more and more of his money trying to mandate more and more ethanol use. And it's problematic, to say the least.
Let me ask you something, and Dan, this is where your knowledge and education is going to take precedence over my question. From what little bit I know, we're at a level now of ethanol added into our petroleum products to where they are already proving that there's damage to small engines, lawnmowers, etc. How much more before everything just burns up?
Well, and that's the problem, and that is this is the issue that EPA has been weighing with. So the law, the renewable fuel standard, was set up to use increasing amounts of ethanol. Congress mandated it back in 2007. Nancy Pelosi wrote the bill. George Bush, bless his heart, just completely lost his mind on this issue and signed the law to use increasing amounts of ethanol. But the problem is that, as you said, you can only use so much ethanol. And in a gallon of gas, you can only have 10% ethanol. More than that, you have even more problems. And even at 10% ethanol, if you use it in your small engines, you want to use it, and you do not want to let that sit over. You do not want to let it sit because it's going to corrode some of the parts.
Oh boy!
You have a problem with rubber. So that's the problem right now. Is even at 10% ethanol, it's a problem for small engines. And so the law works. It mandates using ever-increasing amounts, but there's nowhere for that ethanol to go. And that's the problem. And that's why there's been a fight, and there's been a whole bunch of lobbying in Washington to say, between the people that think you should increase the mandate, which I have no idea where they want the ethanol to go. Actually, I do know. They want gasoline to become like E15 or 20. In other words, 15% ethanol, 20% ethanol. And there's just nowhere for that to go. And so EPA is currently 10 months late in finalizing the 2014 ethanol mandate because even the Obama administration realizes it's a little bit of a problem. So it's ridiculous. Should set the standard and be done with it at a level that is what they think that E10 will be.
Well, wait a minute, Dan. I've got so many questions that popped into my head when you said this. If they go to an E15 or good Lord no, an E20, what about all the warranties? Is that going to void all the warranties on engines? We're going to have people standing in line with billy clubs and hatchets trying to kill somebody for wrecking their vehicles.
Yep. It's as simple as that. The automakers will not warranty any car. There's a few recent models, but otherwise, and flex fuel vehicles, of course. But otherwise, automakers will not warranty engines that use E15, and that's why you cannot do it. That's why a gasoline retailer is not going to sell E15 because they don't. It will not help them in any way to be selling a product that's going to harm your car. It's stupid, especially because you know what? While ethanol, yes, it's made from corn. That's good. It's domestic, but so is a heck of a lot of oil, and we could be producing a lot more. Stop these stupid mandates, and that is the problem. And the reason that the Obama administration gets away with it, as your listeners have heard, is that these regulations are ridiculously confused, and people's minds just my eyes glaze over when I'm reading it, and that's what I do for a living. And that's the problem. We have so many regulations that really, the people, it's hard to care about. And for that reason, it's just, stop all these mandates. Let's make these regulations go away so people can just live their lives.
Let me ask you this, Dan, and don't laugh and snicker at me because I really don't know the answer to this question. But if they add more ethanol to the gasoline, wouldn't that create a burning hotter situation and actually distort what they're trying to stop, and that's climate change and global warming?
Well, I'm not sure I understand your question.
I guess what I'm asking is, and let me paraphrase that again. By adding more ethanol to gasoline, isn't that going to create a burning hotter situation? And these environmentalists, aren't they crying the blues saying that we're adding to global warming? Isn't that going to add to global warming?
Well, it's funny. The environmentalists say that ethanol does not that ethanol does not lead to increased greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, since it comes from because it comes from corn. However, there's a whole bunch of studies out there that say that that because of all the processing that it takes, that the use of ethanol will actually increase your carbon dioxide emissions overall. But the point is, like, come on, guys, quit worrying about that. Just ask a simple question: does it make any economic sense? And do the stuff that makes economic sense, because there are benefits of ethanol, there are negatives of ethanol. People want to have E80. They can do that in certain cars. Great, good for them. But don't force that on the rest of us. Let us decide if we want to run pure gasoline. I only, in my weed eater, for example, I only put pure gasoline in my weed eater because I want to have a problem with, getting dunked up with even 10% ethanol.
Yeah. I have talked to, and one of my major sponsors on this program has an ATV company, and I've talked to them, and they're scared to death that there's going to be more increase in ethanol in the gasoline because, again, of the engine damage. And I think somebody, on behalf of the recreational vehicles, on behalf of the automobiles in this country, they should start a great big lawsuit right now before it's even approached as coming up with another higher figure, and just say, we're going to be standing in line to sue your pants off if you do something so idiotic. I think they should start the process right now.
I definitely agree with you, and it's not just it's the ATV guys, but it's also the boating guys.
Yeah.
A lot of those boat motors are not those are not they are a few years old, and you don't need to get very many years old before you have motors that are going to have problems, even with 10% ethanol. So, I mean, it is a real problem, and that's one of the things that's really frustrating about this. And some of with small engines, those frequently are engines that you don't need to run that much. Like, they're not things that you're doing every single day. So they're lasting you for a good number of years, especially if you take care of it.
Yep.
And now here we have these new regulations, all in the name of climate change, all in the name of global warming, that will harm these products that we have that are perfectly good products, that are are valuable to us, that make our lives better, all in the name of global warming. It is absolute craziness.
Dan, I'm sitting here and, just my small little cowboy mind, you start adding and multiplying the cost to the economy and the hazards to the economy and the lawsuits. My goodness, we can't absorb that. We've got our boot heels on the edge of a cliff right now, economically speaking, and we're about ready to tip over. This would be devastating.
Well, definitely. And the other thing that we haven't mentioned yet is that increasing the amount of ethanol is going to, it won't reduce the price of gasoline. In many cases, it will increase the cost of a gallon of gasoline, or of the equivalent, because a gallon of ethanol doesn't have as much energy as a gallon of gasoline. So if you want to go the same amount of miles, it's going to be, it's going to cost you more. So you're going to be paying higher cost to comply with this stuff. For the refiners, it's going to, it's going to require more cost for them, because transporting ethanol is, you only can transport ethanol in dedicated pipelines because it picks up water and other things, because it's a solvent. So you have a whole bunch of problems, and it just, at every step of the way, you're talking about increased cost for consumers. For the people that work down the street here in Washington, D.C., and that think it's a great idea, it's just absolutely crazy. They don't understand how the rest of us, want to live our lives. And, we want to live our lives without Washington coming in and getting in getting in our faces and trying to change the some very basic things about our life. If I have a lawnmower that's 10 years old and is perfectly serviceable, I want to keep being able to use that lawnmower without worrying that if I put any new gasoline in it, that it's going to to kill the engine. That is economically destructive, and sadly, this is what happens when you have people like Tom Steyer, billionaires in San Francisco, that are heavily influencing these sorts of policies, because they didn't make their money by working the land. They make their they don't know how the rest of us working stiffs live. They work in downtown San Francisco, and then they fly over the rest of the country and think that it's pretty.
Let me ask you this, Dan.
That's a lot.
Let me ask you this question: is there anything on the horizon as far as mechanical research or engine research that would help alleviate the problem as far as a higher ethanol content that could be an additive or whatever to the engines to cut back on the risk of destruction of the engine?
As I understand it, yes. But you can there are certain parts you can replace in small engines, just in the fuel system, so that it isn't as much of a problem, to make sure that new fuel lines are can handle ethanol, that they won't crack, and that won't be a problem. In automotive engines, you can do a whole lot of things, but the problem is that those, to harden the engines to deal with ethanol, that's only really for new engines.
Yeah.
It isn't going to be, perfectly serviceable engines that are going to last us 10, 20 years. That doesn't matter for those engines. But in terms of, you can do some small retrofits, but the big stuff, you're going to need new engines.
Because of the increase of ethanol in the gas that would absolutely tear apart the engines and destroy the engines. And the lack of warranties, you turn the key and you got nothing. This is absolutely ridiculous to me, and I've heard many, many people talk about this. Nick over at Let's Ride, many others. They're very, very concerned. And you, the consumer, should be getting a hold of Crapo's office, Rish's office, Simpson, Labrador, and not asking them, telling them they better get up off the couch and go do something to stop this. Okay? We've got to have a weather update right now, and the weather update is brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. The great indoors for those who love the great outdoors. I mean, they've got everything. You go in that store, and I dare you to try to find something that you're looking for that they don't have. I mean, I don't know who does all the purchasing. Wow, what a job they do. They've got it all. And you stop in and see Reese Woodmeyer, the manager, a good buddy of ours. They've got all your hunting, fishing, archery, camping, boating, electronics, knives, tools, everything, your clothing, it's there at Sportsman's Warehouse. Right now here is Michael Rogers with the weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers at Zip of the Ranch. Isolated showers and thunderstorms today, 78 for the high. This will only taper off tonight, and should have a nice day tomorrow. And temperatures going to be warmer tomorrow, 80 for the high tomorrow. But right now, tomorrow's not here. So we deal with today. Enjoy the weather. It is the only weather you've got.
There you go. MichaelRogersWeather.com, brought to you by my store I love, Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. The great indoors for those who love the great outdoors. Absolutely. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Want to remind you also about our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Yes, sirree, they've got a great big Labor Day sale planned. Yes, listen to this. They're even going to be open on Labor Day from 11 to 4. No money down. No interest until 2015 on approved credit. Wow, they got some doorbuster deals for you too on mattresses and sofas and dinette sets. I'll tell you what, listen to this. 7-piece dinette set, regularly $15.99, now just $7.99 sale price for Labor Day sale at Lee's Furniture, Floors and More at $4.59 Overland and Burley. They got 3-piece table sets. They've got all kinds of living room packages, sofas and love seats, everything in power recliners. Woo! 3 colors to choose from, just $3.99. You better stop in today. Lee's Furniture, Floors and More at $4.59 Overland in Burley. Really, really nice people. Like I said, I've got time for another call, and the number is 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And I also want to remind you quickly, before I take your call that I know is coming in, that you should think about life insurance, health insurance, and retirement planning, and then always think about Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Dean and Todd, oh boy, yep, they're very dedicated and responsive to your needs, and very accessible too. All you have to do is call, set up an appointment, and they will help you. 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Really nice people. All right. There was a big newspaper story this morning on the front page of the Times News, and I would like you folks to respond to this. I have always been against school starting before the county fair. And I just think that these kids that are involved in 4-H projects, that have devoted the time, the effort, and the responsibility to enhance those projects and get ready for the fair, I think it's absolutely ridiculous for them to be turned away from going to the fair because they might miss a couple of school days, and that might have a reflection on what happens later on in the school year with their testing. And I just think that there's a lot more to the county fair than just going to rides on the carnival and buying an ice cream cone. I think that going to a county fair creates a work ethic through the projects that they have. I think it teaches these kids a great amount of responsibility. I think it also helps with a winning and a losing attitude that's going to help them all the way through life. And another thing, not all of these kids are involved in sports, and this is an outlet for them to really try to be the best they can be and learn how to be winners. And I just think that schools that start in advance of Labor Day and cause nothing but problems for the parents and these kids that are involved in the fair, I don't think it is fair at all. Gina, what are your thoughts on this? I just think that fairs and school should be compatible because of some of the great lessons that are learned by being a part of a fair.
I absolutely agree. You know, when I was in 4-H, and of course where I lived, going to the fair meant 52 miles away. But they were always very amenable to the students who were in 4-H. Okay, so they would give you your homework, and then you had to, do that homework and bring it back in. But it's not like you just got a free pass. You still had to do the work, but you could go and fulfill your requirements for 4-H and with the fair. And, I think that the schools should make concessions for this because
I do too.
4-H is all about leadership and learning anyway.
Absolutely.
It goes in conjunction with education. So I think that the school district should be working together.
I've always been an advocate that I don't think, and I don't care who's offended by this because this is my opinion, I don't think schools should start before Labor Day anyway.
Yeah. I don't remember ever going to school before Labor Day.
I never did.
Yeah.
I never did. It was customary right after Labor Day. I mean, that was like the door shutting on summer, and it's time to open the door to education.
Amen.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because I'm bitter, and I think that a lot of kids are going to suffer needlessly over this because they learn a lot by having projects, taking care of those projects, and being a part of a winning and losing situation. And I'm definitely not in favor of school, in this case, infringing on the students and their 4-H work. Okay. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back with Dr. History, my dear friend Dr. History, and then at 10:30, another dear friend, and that's Kyle Wilson. We got a full hour left. Don't go away. Zeb at the Ranch. Be right back. Oh my, welcome back, hour number 3 on a Tuesday. Zeb at the Ranch, and I'm Zeb Bell. Welcome back, and our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, along with some of our great advertisers, and they are Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley, and Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Get rid of your garbage, 734-6969. Oh, my. Oh, you know what? Hold on just a second before we get Dr. History on here. I want to talk to you about the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Oh, my goodness. What's on the menu for today, the special? I'm going to be slobbering all over the microphone. Listen to this. Pulled pork burritos with Santa Fe rice and super salad. It is going to be delicious. I got to say that again. Pulled pork burritos with Santa Fe rice and super salad at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Great folks, great menu. Oh yeah, the Chadwick in Burley. Stop in today. Well, last week, and I'm going to humble myself. Last week I made a faux pas. Last week I had forgotten that Dr. History was adios amigo, and I went to introduce him, and not there, and we had to do our best to pull things together, and thanks to John Ellis and thanks to Gina, we had an abbreviated story with Dr. History, but I know that he's back today because I can hear him breathing, and that's a good sign. So good morning, Dr. History. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. It's always good to be breathing, right?
It's better than the alternative.
It certainly is. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm a lot better, but I owe you an apology, and I want to make it public in front of everybody. I really am sorry about last week.
Oh, that's all right. I just was glad I was listening on the Internet and realized that when you introduced me and I wasn't there, that maybe I better make a quick phone call.
It caused me great concern.
Well, all is well. We're good for today.
All right. Now, you, of course, we've got to mention the website, dr-history.com, because you were telling last week, as a matter of fact, that our numbers are increasing, and literally we've got, 27 countries that have gone on the website and listened to the program.
We're over 9,300 hits, and about 25, 26 different countries, and surprisingly, a bunch of people in Japan and China, places that you would not think, they would be listening, but we're slowly being found out, which is a good thing.
All right. Well, what are you going to tell us today?
Well, anytime I go on a trip, I like to kind of do a little travel log of where I've been and what I've done, and I have a daughter in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And so we drove up to Boise, and then we drove up through McCall, up through Lewiston to Coeur d'Alene, and then came back down through Montana. So as I drive, I always like to look at the historic sites and one thing and another, and so I'm just going to kind of give you a little travel log, but probably the most of what I'm going to talk about is the Nez Perce Indians.
Okay.
So, as you get up to McCall, of course, the Indians were the first inhabitants right in that area. And actually, there were 3 tribes. There was a tribe known as the Sheep Eaters, and they were kind of a sub-band or a sub-tribe of the Shoshone. Then there was the actual Shoshone tribe, and then the Nez Perce. And these Indians mainly inhabited the land in the summertime, and then they migrated when the winters got bad. They would go south where it's a little warmer. But in the early 19th century, there was a nomadic French-Canadian fur trapper. His name was Francois Payette, and that's where we get the name Payette. Mm-hmm. But he roamed the area alongside the other mountain men, including Jim Bridger, Peter Skeen Ogden, Jedediah Smith. He was one of those guys. But during the 1860s, miners temporarily named the settlement Lake City there in McCall. But the settlement of McCall was established by Thomas and Louisa McCall in about 1889, 90, 91, right in there. And anyway, Tom, his wife, 4 sons, and a daughter lived in the cabin located on the shore of the lake near what we would now call present-day Hotel McCall. But he established a school, a hotel, a saloon, a post office, and named himself postmaster. So that's just a little brief story about McCall. Now, as we head farther north, we get to a place called White Bird, and this is where I'm going to start talking about the Nez Perce Indians.
Okay.
That's always been a fascinating story for me, and when I travel that area, I just can imagine seeing the Nez Perce Indians traveling through this area in peaceful times and in not-so-peaceful times. So there was a battle that occurred at White Bird, and it's called the White Bird Battle. But now, to go back a little farther, the origins of the war that caused Chief Joseph, and the Nez Perce so much hardship and grief lay in the Wallowa country of northeast Oregon. Now, this is, of course, where for generations the Nez Perce, that was their homeland. But, and we've talked about this before, the arrival of the white settlers in the region led to violence. Settlers were killed, but as many as 30 Nez Perce Indians were also killed. And yet few of the people that were accused ever stood trial, and if they did, they were always let go. They were always acquitted. So anyway, about this time, there was a Captain David Perry who was commanding an office. He was an officer of the 1st Cavalry, and he was ordered to arrest some of these Indians that were making raids on the white settlers. And he was to escort the Nez Perce to Lapwai. Well, Perry led 106 cavalrymen, accompanied by 11 civilian volunteers, to the location of the Nez Perce camp site at the head of White Bird Canyon. Well, as the cavalry marched down the canyon slopes, there were about 60 to 70 Nez Perce warriors that prepared to meet them. Now, as the Nez Perce positioned their warriors along the cavalry's expected route, they sent a small truce party to talk to the soldiers. Now, as the truce party approached, a shot rang out as one of the volunteers opened fire. Well, obviously, this ended any possibility of any kind of a truce. Well, within minutes of the opening shots, the Nez Perce marksman killed a trumpeter. Now, this was the main way of communicating between the officers and the men. So this made it difficult for Captain Perry to communicate orders to his unit. Well, while the cavalry formed a skirmish line, making ready to advance, the Nez Perce responded by attacking the flanks of the extended line. Unfortunately, Perry had placed the volunteers on the left flank, and as volleys of rifle fire poured into their position, they panicked and broke, running toward the line of cavalry at the top of this ridge. Now, as the volunteers scampered up the slope, panic spread throughout the line, and as the flanks collapsed, Perry ordered a retreat. As soldiers panicked, a lot of them actually dropped their weapons and ran, leaving behind about 34 dead soldiers on the battlefield. Well, when the soldiers reached the top of White Bird Valley, they continued their retreat as fast as they could go. They went actually to a little settlement called Mount Idaho, and here they dug in and waited for help. Well, the Nez Perce retrieved the fallen weapons, picking up approximately 63 carbines, pistols, ammunition, and realizing the gravity of the situation, the Nez Perce quickly broke camp and crossed the Salmon River as General Howard gathered his forces for a pursuit that would continue for the next 4 months. So this is kind of the beginning of the Nez Perce saga, if you want to call it. Now, I'm going to kind of skip here a little bit. We went on up to Coeur d'Alene, and I've got some information about Coeur d'Alene, but on our way back down through Montana, we passed an area called Big Hole, and this is, and I'm sure you've heard of that, the Battle of the Big Hole.
Yep.
And so I'm going to skip right over to that, because that, as the Nez Perce Indians were harassed and driven and fled, they went across Idaho through the Lolo Pass and on over to this other battle. So I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah, let me ask you a question right there, Doc. I'm trying to remember, it's been so long since I've been through that respective area, but isn't there a small town by the name of Victor right there?
I don't recall that, but there very well could be. Okay. I don't remember.
All right, go ahead. Okay.
Well, anyway, the Nez Perce leaders, they'd led their people by this time over into Montana, a pretty extensive trek over after several battles, and they were trying to escape the soldiers of this General Howard. Now, the Nez Perce crossed from Idaho into Montana across that Lolo Pass, and I don't know if any of the listeners have been through that area, but I have. I've traveled the Locksaw River, and those mountains right in that area, that's a pretty rough area to travel.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, the Nez Perce entered the Bitterroot Valley over there in Montana, and then they proceeded southward. Now, Chief Looking Glass seems to have kind of taken over leadership from Chief Joseph at this point. Now, Looking Glass pledged to the white settlers in the Bitterroot Valley that the Nez Perce would pass through their valley without violence. And they did so, even trading and purchasing supplies from some of the white merchants. So these were not violent Indians that were looking for a battle. They were, they just wanted to have their land and live peacefully. Well, Looking Glass persuaded the Nez Perce that General Howard was far behind and that the citizens of Montana did not want war with them. So their progress was kind of leisurely. I mean, they actually kind of slowed down. They took very few precautions for defense. They didn't even send out scouts or setting pickets to guard their encampments. Well, they left the Bitterroot Valley, crossed the mountain range, and camped in the Big Hole Basin. And pausing to replenish their teepee poles from the surrounding forest, the Nez Perce at this point numbered about 750 people in all, with about 200 warriors. Now, unknown to the Nez Perce, Colonel John Gibbon had left Fort Shaw with 161 officers and men and one howitzer. And they were following the trail of the Nez Perce, and along the way he collected about 45 civilian volunteers in the Bitterroot Valley. Now, on August 8th, Gibbon located the Nez Perce encampment in the Big Hole. Well, that night, Gibbon marched overland to the Nez Perce camp. He got there early in the morning, and he left his 12-pound howitzer and a pack train to follow behind with a guard of about 20 men. Now, his orders were no prisoners and no negotiations. That's what his orders from the upper guys were, from his leaders.
Right.
And so he'd come to fight the Nez Perce. That was all there was to it. Well, between Gibbon's position and the Nez Perce encampment, which consisted of about 89 teepees in a V-shaped pattern, was the waist-deep and willow-lined North Fork of the Big Hole River. Now, approaching the Nez Perce encampment on foot at dawn, Gibbon's men encountered an old Nez Perce man, and they killed him. The soldiers crossed the river and rushed into the village and began firing into the teepees where most of the Nez Perce were still sleeping. As I mentioned, they weren't prepared for anything. Well, the Indians were taken by surprise, and they fled in all directions. And the sad part of this, Gibbon's men fired indiscriminately at men, women, children. Now, to their defense, I guess, if you want to call it that, they said some of the women were said to have been armed and shot back at the soldiers. Well, what else would you do?
Absolutely.
So, anyway, at this point, there was a Lieutenant James Bradley. He was leading Gibbon's left wing. He was killed early in the battle. So, leaderless, his men did not continue their advance, and they left the northern part of the village unoccupied, which actually gave a refuge and kind of a rallying point to the Nez Perce. So that's where they headed. Now, Gibbon, he halted his men in their pursuit, not wishing his force to be scattered, and ordered them to burn the teepees. Well, that proved difficult to do, and the pause gave the Nez Perce time to regroup. And the voices of Chief Whitebird and Looking Glass, they were rallying their men from the opposite end of the village, and from shelter positions, the Nez Perce began to return fire. Now, Gibbon's horse was hit, and he was wounded in the leg, and several other soldiers were killed. And as usual, the Nez Perce marksmanship was really excellent. Although, according to the warrior Yellow Wolf, most of the Nez Perce warriors had fled without their weapons, and only a few of them were actually armed. Well, 20 minutes after his entry into the village, Gibbons, realizing that he was in a bad position, he actually ordered a retreat back across the river to kind of a timbered area about 300 or 400 yards and out of view of the village. Well, the soldiers dug rifle pits and constructed rock and log barriers, and at this point, Gibbons brought his howitzer up onto the battlefield and fired 2 or 3 rounds, but really didn't do anything. Well, the Nez Perce killed or wounded most of the howitzer crew, and they abandoned the gun, but they dismantled it first. Well, at this point, Gibbon, fearing that the Nez Perce, who he believed outnumbered him, although they really probably did not, he was afraid they would overrun his position.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, the battle settled down into kind of a sniping duel between about 60 Nez Perce under Chief Olcott and the soldiers. Well, the Nez Perce had collected arms and ammunition that had been left behind by the soldiers in their retreat. And at one point, the Nez Perce set fires and attempted to burn the soldiers out of their position. But the wind shifted and the fire burned itself out. And that afternoon, the Nez Perce continued sniping at the soldiers while their women packed up, gathered the horse herd, and moved out south, going about 18 miles to a place called Lake Creek where they made camp. And this time, obviously, they were more attentive and they set up defensive works and perimeters. Well, Gibbon had a serious problem that night. His men had no food. They had a dead horse. They had no water, and a lot of seriously wounded men to tend to. Well, a little water was obtained from the river by volunteers who crept through the Indian lines, and several of the civilian volunteers had had enough of the battle, and they just kind of quietly slipped away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gibbon sent out messengers, and anyway, after everything was said and done, the battle was really costly for both sides. I mean, Gibbon's force was unfit to pursue the Nez Perce. Gibbon suffered 29 dead, 23 soldiers and 6 civilian volunteers, and 40 wounded.
Wow.
And 36 soldiers and 4 civilians were wounded, but of whom 2 later died. Now, his casualties amounted to more than 30% of his force. So no precise estimate of the Nez Perce casualties exists, although their total dead probably amounted to between 70 and 90, of whom less than 33 were warriors.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, they had about 200 warriors, so they really didn't lose that many actual warriors. But again, this Indian named Yellow Wolf claimed that only 12 real fighters, but he said our best, died in the battle. And among them were Chief Joseph and his brother Olcott's wives. They weren't killed, but they were wounded. Well, at this point, Gibbon sent out messengers to search for General Howard, who was following him, and request a relief. And the next day, August 10th, about 20 or 30 Nez Perce sharpshooters kept the soldiers holed up in their fortifications all day. And the Nez Perce warriors left that night, leaving Gibbon and his soldiers alone, but pretty much immobile. And General Howard and an advance party of 29 cavalrymen and 17 Bannock scouts found Gibbon the next morning after about a 71-mile ride through the night. But again, the aftermath of this whole thing, Gibbon's success in surprising the Nez Perce caused Looking Glass's prestige as a leader to kind of drop. He hadn't been diligent in watching what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Looking Glass kind of fell out of favor with his tribe. But he had promised them that they would be safe in Montana, and instead nearly every Nez Perce family had suffered loss in the battle. Now at this point, Chief Joseph seems to have kind of resumed his role as the principal leader of the Nez Perce.
Well, let me ask you, stop for a minute, quick.
Okay.
Why did he relinquish his power in the first place? I never did understand that.
Well, from what I recall is that Chief Joseph wanted peace, but there was a conflict between him and some of the others, and so he kind of relinquished his leadership, I guess.
I see.
He just said, okay, if this is what you want, you guys go ahead.
Okay.
I'll just sit back. And I can't remember if he's the one that said, no, let's fight, or if he's the one that said, no, let's not fight.
No, I believe that Chief Joseph was the one that did not want to fight, and from all historical accounts that I've read, he was a man of peace, and he was a very, very intelligent man.
He was. He was one of those guys that, like Crazy Horse and some of those, that was a very, very intelligent military man.
Right.
So, but again, as I mentioned, Chief Joseph, he resumed his role as kind of the principal leader of the Nez Perce, and although Looking Glass would continue to be, I guess, if you want to call it, the battlefield leader, he was the military leader, I guess, still. But Now, for the Nez Perce, the loss in the battle was bad. I mean, it was pretty bad. They anticipated that by leaving Idaho, they might leave the war behind them and live peacefully. Now they knew that all the white men were their enemies, and they could expect no help in future battles. And Howard's forces, of course, they knew were just arriving on the battlefield. They took up the pursuit and followed Joseph toward Yellowstone National Park. And again, the Nez Perce would clash on August 20th at another battle called the Battle of Camas Meadows. And of course, I know we don't have time to continue on much farther, but of course they headed towards Canada, hoping to seek refuge up there, and really were kind of gave up not too far from the Canadian border. And that was kind of the end of the Nez Perce.
You know, when you look at it, and I'm not going to point my finger and say this was wrong or you were wrong or this group was wrong or whatever, but you just really have to have a lot of sympathy and empathy. I know in every civilization, there's always been a kind of a conquering situation, to where highly civilized people came in and took over the not so highly civilized. But when you look at the Indians in the Northwest especially, like Chief Joseph and others, there could have been some negotiation and a much friendlier way to do that than what the Army tried to impose upon the Indians.
Right. I mean, to have orders of, okay, you go in and wipe out these Nez Perce Indians, when, again, they didn't want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You did a very, very good job on that story. And once again, I want you to remind everybody about dr-history.com, how they can listen to it.
dr-history.com on the internet. We have probably about 30 stories on there at this point, so I'm sure people may have missed some of the live radio shows, so you can go back and pick up on those. And actually last week, even though we were gone, I had John put on a story of Black Bart.
Oh.
So we haven't missed a week without a story on the internet.
Well, with the team that we have, you and John Ellis and my very minuscule part, it's an interesting little segment. Thank you so much.
You bet, Zeb. You have a good day.
And we'll look forward to next Tuesday.
Sounds good.
All right. Dr. History right here on Zeb at the Ranch. Thank you so much. Hey, don't forget on Thursdays, we have a segment called Cassia County School Days, and we're very, very blessed to have two wonderful sponsors. And I want to acknowledge them right now. First of all, A Child's World. That is an outstanding business in Burley at 1308 Overland Avenue with, back-to-school jeans for boys starting at just $10 and girls $15.99. They've got school shirts for just $9.99, and they've got all kinds of backpacks. They've got everything the kids are going to need to go to school, and including all the puzzles and the toys and the books, and everything is gift-wrap free. You stop into A Child's World, 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley. And we also want to say thank you very much to the Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Drive in Burley. They are really saving patients money. Now, each patient feels welcome, receives outstanding medical care, and saves money. That's the key. And whether it's for arthroscopic knee surgery or ears and tonsils, life-saving colonoscopies, just to name a few, call 677-8888. That number again, 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center and A Child's World, bringing you school days in Cassia County. Right now, we're going to take a small break. Be right back with our next guest, and that'll be Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much and welcome back. And before we get our guest on the phone, I want to remind you the Twin Falls County Fair starts tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and runs all the way through September 1st. Magic Valley Stampede, PRCA Rodeo, the 28th, 29th, and 30th. Don't miss it. Great big 3-day event rodeo. Exceptional good cowboys and bucking stock at the Twin Falls County Fair and Rodeo, and that's all a big part of the Twin Falls County Fair. Under the theme Carnival Lights and Western Nights, this is an ag-based, family-oriented fair. You're going to love it. Twin Falls County Fair and Rodeo with the Magic Valley Stampede. Don't you miss it. All right now let's go to the phone lines, and I'm very honored to have this gentleman on my program each and every time he can be on the show talking about education. And one of the things I'll just start off and say is that under the current administration with progressivism, with the liberal thought, disgusting downgrade of our values, and that leads me right into teachers afraid to say the Pledge of Allegiance in our schools. What in the world is going on, Kyle Olson?
How are you?
I am fantastic, thank you.
Good. Yeah, so we have been seeing, I think as the years go on and progressivism continues to take root in schools, what we're seeing is that, people in schools don't, think as highly of America as we historically have. And as I think atheists and secular progressives continue to attack traditional roots of America, our founding and our laws and our traditions and those sorts of things, government schools are the natural place that they attack. And we have seen that with school baccalaureates. We have seen that with Christmas concerts. We are now seeing that with the Pledge of Allegiance, where they're attacking the phrase "under God" specifically, and they're challenging schools to, if they're going to say the pledge, to not use the words "under God." And so I try to monitor the situation, and we just continue to see schools that we've got teachers who say that it's a legal risk. It's actually a legal risk to say the Pledge of Allegiance. There was another story where a teacher, supposedly inadvertently, but one way or the other, left the phrase "under God" out of the daily Pledge of Allegiance. So it's just this sort of thing that, I think it's just another thing that parents have to grapple with when they send their kids off to school.
In the verbiage on the story that was sent to me, it says the same words that you just mentioned, too much risk. Why? I mean, what are they going to do, Kyle? What are they going to threaten? How are they going to sue them? How are they going to take away their teacher's license? Doesn't anybody have the backbone to stand up to these progressives anymore?
Well, see, the trouble is, I think a lot of people would like to do that, and I wish they would, but I think a lot of school districts, they look at these sorts of cases as a business decision, and they say, okay, we've got this atheist group, Freedom From Religion is one group, they're based in Wisconsin. They do a lot of this saber rattling, and what they'll do is they'll send a letter, a legal letter threatening the school district to either change your policy or we're going to sue you. And a lot of these school districts, they know that the legal process is very expensive. It takes a long time. It's very draining. And so they look at this, like I said, as a business decision. They can say, well, we can either placate these out-of-state atheists into not suing us, or we can continue doing what we're doing and potentially spend, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in a legal fight that we may not even win. And so that is the battle that is going on in a lot of government schools. And so we've got this situation where we want traditional values perpetuated through society, I believe. And one of the ways to do that is in schools. But the natural rub that you've got is you've got these atheists who are claiming separation of church and state and all of that, and telling people that, we're going to sue you if you continue on.
Now, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong on this, Kyle, because I'm sure you have more knowledge on this subject than I do by far. But wasn't it through the Eisenhower administration, and wasn't it a federal edict through his office to make the words "under God" inclusive in the pledge in the first place?
Yeah, that's exactly right. He did that in 1954 with an executive order. to include the words "under God," and he did that. I believe it was because of the Boy Scouts had petitioned him to do that.
Right.
And but that policy or that tradition is being chipped away because I think a variety of reasons. One is, of course, you've got courts that I think look down their nose at religion and how that intersects with society and institutions, public institutions. And so but also too, the atheist groups are very aggressive. We wrote a story, I think it may have been last year or the year before, about how there was a woman in, I think, Philadelphia, where she would go to the school steps to pray every morning. And she didn't bother anybody, she didn't proselytize, she just, that was what she was called to do. And she went and did that. And when people found out, the atheist group sued, claiming that she couldn't do that on public property. And so the school, again, backed off and forced her to stop doing it. That's the sort of thing that's the sort of influence that the atheist groups are having on civic discourse and how things are run in public institutions.
Kyle, little by little, every day, it seems like you used the words chipping away earlier in your verbiage, and I see that. I mean, every single day, some moral fabric, some moral cloth is ripped and torn and discarded and thrown away in this country, and pretty soon it's going to be nothing but a secular mess. I mean, I'm really concerned as to what our moral value is going to be in the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I just see, and in the stories that we write about, we just see this culture war that's going on in schools and the moral fabric of schools and therefore society fraying. I mean, one of the things that we really focus on is the inappropriate relationships between teachers and students. And, a lot of, we write about these almost every day. There typically are stories every single day. And a lot of people come back at us and say, there's 3 million teachers in America and you're only talking about, one a day and that sort of thing. But when you have one case a day, I mean, that adds up. And the story that we have today is the reigning North Dakota Teacher of the Year is accused. He's not convicted. He is accused, innocent until proven guilty. But he's accused of molesting a student, and he's charged with 5 felonies related to molesting a student. And so these sorts of issues need to be taken seriously. I mean, just imagine, and think back to, was it 10 years ago or whatever it was, with the scandal with the Catholic Church and the priests molesting kids. And that was, front page news, and it was just a major scandal. And it was terrible, and it deserved that sort of scrutiny. But we are seeing these sorts of stories on a daily basis in schools across America, and it receives very little attention.
I got so many questions right here, and remind me, I want to get back to parental responsibility, but there's one other aspect of the Pledge of Allegiance. I used to, when I was in grade school, say the pledge. We used to do it in high school. Never a second thought about it as far as anything negative. But also, tell us a story about a South Dakota school board that rejected a veteran's request to say the pledge because the school board said they couldn't find the time. I mean, we're talking 10 to 12 seconds here, Kyle.
Right, and remember, these sorts of stories happen in South Dakota, in conservative, or traditionally, at least culturally conservative states. And so, basically, this was from last year. There was some concern that high schoolers in that school district weren't saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And so a group of veterans went to the school board and said, can you find a time during the day to have the kids say the Pledge of Allegiance? It takes 10 seconds, literally 10 seconds. And because they had 3 high schools in that district, they couldn't find a consistent time. Apparently they all had to say it at the exact same second each day. Therefore, none of them would say it. And it's just this sort of thing that I think, and that veteran was literally in tears. The video is on our website. the veteran was literally in tears, and his story basically is, I fought for this country, I nearly died for this country. It's not too much to bestow on students the importance of this country and the exceptionalism of this country, and saying the Pledge of Allegiance is one reminder as a way to remember how exceptional our country is.
You know, Kyle, you are excellent at what you do in exposing problems with education in this country. But I think some of the problems are self-inflicted because, and I'm just going to come right out and say it, if you disagree, fine, because of a lack of parental involvement and parental responsibility. It sounds to me like we're less than one generation away from complete chaos because parents don't care.
Well, I think it's, generally speaking, I tend to agree with that. On the other hand, what we have is a progressive leadership in the country that continues to chip away at parental responsibility. Because really what could happen here, there's two paths that we could take. One, we could have elected leaders calling on parents to be more responsible, calling on them to make the lunch every day, calling on them to help with homework and help their kids learn to read and work hard and all of those sorts of things. Or they could just try and do it themselves as the government, as the bureaucrats, because they want to be in control. And that's the path that we are going on, whether it's Michelle Obama's school lunch and snack rules, or whether it's providing all meals for students, as some schools are doing now. We're just seeing this encroachment on parental responsibility. Unfortunately, there's a lot of parents who see that as a relief, because they see it as one less thing that they have to do. But what I would like to see is where we get back to a place where we expect parents to actually be parents. And if you're having the children, then you're expected to raise the children and make them responsible assets to society and not liabilities.
You know, and you and I were on the air last week, and I want to kind of recap during our conversation. It was right in the middle, unfortunately, of everything that was negative going on in Ferguson, Missouri. And a parent in Ferguson, Missouri had been on national TV and was complaining and bemoaning the fact that their children weren't getting their meals because school had to be closed for a couple of days because of the riots. And it just drew to my attention how absolutely insane our society is, that this parent couldn't feed their kids because the school was closed. And I brought it up to you about parental responsibility. I just can't believe the attitude of some of these people.
Yeah, I agree. The dependency that progressivism creates, where instead of doing it yourself, we're creating this situation where if the school is closed, then kids don't get meals. There's a school district on strike, a teachers union on strike currently in Illinois, and the school is remaining open to continue serving kids meals. They're not learning anything, but they're getting their meal. And that, I think, is what is fundamentally broken with the progressive culture, whether it's in schools or amongst government leaders. We are not calling on parents to be more responsible. We're just simply, the governmental leaders are saying, we'll do that for you. You just sit back and continue to be dependent on us.
You know, Kyle, one other issue I wanted you to comment on, and I'm kind of throwing this at you from out in left field, but here in the West, there are a lot of county fairs that are going on, and I'm sure there are in the Midwest also. And I've been a big advocate of not starting school until after Labor Day and letting these kids that are involved in fairs, that are involved in 4-H, that are involved in livestock projects, really learn responsibility and learn how to win and lose, and the fairs teach that through the 4-H programs. But now there's so many schools that start early, a lot of these kids and their parents are having to make a decision to drop the projects and go to school for fear of not having enough credits. What are your thoughts?
Sure. Our county fairs tend to be earlier in the year, but you're exactly right. I mean, kids need to learn that there are winners and losers, whether it's in sports or raising animals or whatever it is. And because to me what it does is, and I tell this to my kids, if you don't win, well then you need to try harder. You need to work harder. You need to, be more determined. And also too, there are kids that are good at certain things and not so good at other things. I mean, there are some kids who are just not good at athletics. There are some other kids that are just not as good at academics, or it's not as easy for them. And so, I mean, that's life. And so this idea that every kid deserves a trophy, or we shouldn't have competition because there could be some losers, that's not what America has been about. But again, that's the sort of mentality and that's the sort of value set that progressivism is pushing in America, and I think it's very detrimental. And so, ultimately, I think it should be up to individual schools and parents about when school should start, and kids or parents should pick schools based on their best interests. I think they really need to scrutinize whether or not that's in their best interest.
Kyle, final thought here this morning. We've still got 2 years left of this Obama administration. And I was talking to a school cook at a lunch program just the last couple of days. And this lady said, she said, with 2 more years with Mama Obama, and she said, what we have to feed these kids, we ain't seen nothing yet. What are your thoughts? I mean, when you look into a crystal ball, what are your major concerns before we finally get rid of this administration?
Well, talking specifically about lunches, I think what's happening is a lot of kids are being turned off by the lunches and the ridiculous rules. And you can just look on Twitter. They're vile and they're direct and they're nasty towards Michelle Obama. And that's interesting because President Obama, as a candidate, was the great savior. He was going to be, he was going to heal the oceans and whatever rhetoric he used. But as people see his policies, they just see them as controlling and as dictating, and they're not happy. So what's happening is there's an increase in kids bringing home packed lunches. And so what I think is going to happen is the USDA and the federal government will try to regulate home packed lunches. And we've seen some studies come out. There was a study done by Tufts University that showed or claimed that because of the new regulations, now home packed lunches aren't as healthy as school lunches. The school-provided lunches. So the natural inclination or the natural direction will be to regulate home-packed lunches.
Oh my.
And I think when that happens, they will have a whole new fight on their hands, unlike anything they've seen yet.
Kyle, you are on top of it, and we really appreciate all your effort. EAGnews.org, Kyle Olson, absolutely excellent on this program. Thank you, sir. God's blessings, and I'll call you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wow. I mean, come on, folks. You're the parents. These are your kids. The school doesn't own your kids. Don't turn over your parental responsibility and rights. Good Lord. What's happening in this country is absolutely, I think it's insane. Absolutely insane. Oh, we got to have a weather update. And the weather this hour is brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the rest of the folks. I got to get Don on the program this next week and talk about being a custom meat processor for over 20 years. I think it'd be interesting. And everything they sell is guaranteed. You get a hold of them today because I'll tell you they are the best. And they're selling taste one bite at a time. So be sure and give them a call. Stop in. 331 North Road, Jerome, 324-7657, Scarro's Meats. And right now, here is Michael Rogers' weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers at Zip at the Ranch. Isolated showers and thunderstorms today, 78 for the high. This will only taper off tonight, and should have a nice day tomorrow. And temperatures going to be warmer tomorrow, 80 for the high tomorrow. But right now, tomorrow's not here. so we deal with today. Enjoy the weather. It is the only weather you've got.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Absolutely. You won't find a better butcher shop for your prized wild game. Let their experience create meat from your hard work and enjoy the months to come. Absolutely. At Scarrows Meats, 324-7657. Selling taste, one bite at a time. Excellent, folks. Let me quickly give you a recap as to what I'm going to do tomorrow on the show, because I've got some really, really interesting people coming on here. And Doug Johnson's going to be on from Colorado, and he is absolutely livid over what's going on with this Obama administration. And then Gail Trotter, Attorney Gail Trotter from Washington, D.C. is going to be on. And then, caller, I'll be right there. Don't forget, we've got Dave Roper at 10:06, a farmer and businessman that has really looked at politics and agriculture, and he's going to give us an insight as to what's happening. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, I started a new book called Righteous Indignation by Andrew Breitbart, and it's a couple years back, but he goes through and explains how the media became so compromised. And it was during the Clinton, Monica Lewinsky situation, and they literally decided that they couldn't figure out a way to save him because he'd lied. And they got to the point where they were just went down so low that it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Scorched earth. You just take out everything about your enemy and whether or not it's true or not, and just, destroy them. So Salon.com out of San Francisco is who is the one who started all this, and it literally tells you how this has, once it started, then it didn't matter anymore. The precedent had been set, and the media has never been the same, and they will do anything. They protected Clinton at all costs, attacked Bush unmercifully, and for protecting Obama at all costs to this day. And since that time, the media has never had any scruples. And so it was truly interesting how he went through it and explained it.
I really want to read that book. And I'm going to make a prediction, Randy. I'm almost out of time. I got to do another commercial, but I'm going to make a prediction that all of a sudden, within the next 2 years, I honestly think there's going to be an epiphany. There's going to be an awakening. There's going to be all of a sudden a light on the horizon where a lot of the news media is going to wake up and they're going to absolutely admit that they were duped, absolutely duped into thinking that Obama was going to be the second coming. And I think they're going to realize that they fell into his trap, but it may be too late.
Well, there's a CIA operative who says that Tom Clancy, who wrote books like Hunt for Red October and all others, and then also Andrew Breitbart, were both ordered by the White House, Obama White House, to be killed. Now, this is what they said.
Yeah, I read that. I've read that excerpt. Randy, I got to run and do a commercial, but you know what? Call me tomorrow, first hour. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the insidious things that are kind of allegations that may be true. Thank you very much.
You bet.
All right. Don't forget our friends, your friends, at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best tire value promise in the industry, and, of course, the best tires with the best tread designs. And, of course, the best in front end alignments for better handling and tire mileage, best in brake service, the best in batteries, the best in service. Stop in and see my friends Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Poline and Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. The best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Wow, got to get out of here and run, literally. And we'll be talking to Gina a little bit over at the station. We got to stop over there. And I want to invite everybody to tune in tomorrow at 8:06 until 11 o'clock. Zeb at the Ranch right here, K-Bar Radio, 1230, and then streaming live on the website, zebbell.com. God bless you. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.